Hey, good morning. What the F happened? Live stream weekly update is live and in effect. My name's Stephen Nagy. I will be hosting the show today on behalf of Chris Naugle, who is traveling across the country, headed to the Billionaire Boardroom Mastermind to strategize, plan for 2024 with other very successful business owners and entrepreneurs so we can come up with the best plan of action to bring you the absolute best content, best education, and best strategies around money, finance, investing that's out there on the internet. That's what we focus on every single day, and that's what we're going to continue to do going into 2024. So with that being said, we're going to go through the news, what's gone on over the last week or two, just some different things happening in the economy, different statistics coming out, what's going on with the housing market, what's going on with mortgages, what happened with like Thanksgiving Day sales and Black Friday. And there's a whole list of things that we're going to go over today. So with that being said, I hope everyone's having a good morning so far. And we'll be right back to get to the news here in just about 27 seconds. All right. Welcome to What the F Happened. So we do have the lovely Shauna Decker joining us this morning, who always is there to fill in and help out and do whatever is needed within the Money School BYOB company. So good morning, Shauna. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. I'm scared to be on this show, but I'm definitely here to bring a different energy than Chris normally does and really just put my 2 cents in when needed. So
yeah, absolutely. So Shauna gets some good stuff going every now and then. So maybe Shauna could text me over any crazy stories you've seen, or you're always on the Instagrams sending wild stuff. So maybe we could pull up some of that as we get going here. But yeah, a little different energy and different vibe than maybe Chris would bring, and maybe a little more subdued. I know Chris was on fire last week, and people love to hear it. So how's life in Buffalo, New York? You guys are getting some snow, right?
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll show you guys this. Oh, the snow outside. We got some snow. We definitely have some snow up in here.
Wow, that's wild. Well, we got a little cold front here today. No snow, but nice enough to put the hoodie on. So it's nice to get a little cooler weather in South Florida. But with that said, let's start with probably the biggest what the F news in modern recent history. And of course, I'm talking about the Florida State Seminoles. So this last Saturday night, the Florida State Seminoles went on to complete their undefeated perfect season, 13-0, winning the ACC championship over the Louisville Cardinals, 12th ranked Louisville Cardinals, to cap off the undefeated season. The only controversy towards the end of the season was losing our star quarterback, Travis Jordan, who went down with an injury and missed the last final couple games of the season. But with that said, the team pulled together. The defense found a way to stop the other team. We beat a very strong SEC Florida Gators team. And then, as I mentioned, went on to win the ACC championship against Louisville with a third-string quarterback because our second string went down. Third-string quarterback came in there. The team rallied around them. They knew they had to win, won the ACC championship. Then Sunday morning, we wake up, tune into ESPN, put on the college playoff selection show at noon, and of course, they disappoint us. They put in an Alabama team in the fourth playoff spot. They put in a Washington Pac-12 team. Pac-12 is not even in existence next season. So pretty much everybody is saying it's a travesty. Football is the ultimate team sport. It's the ultimate sport in America. That's it's all about the team. And for the selection committee to basically say the entire regular season doesn't matter, the team sport of football, what you do during the regular season doesn't matter. It's pathetic, to tell you the truth. And it's all about money. ESPN signed these big, huge contracts with these SEC schools. It's all about TV and views and money. And it's pathetic because it hurts the kids. Imagine being at the end of the day, it's college. I mean, think back to your college days. You're a kid. Like, I can't even imagine the pressure that's put on these college football, these athletes in general, just week after week and day after day, and what they go through to be the best of the best. And for some group of a bunch of old, no offense, old people, where half of them don't even have any background in sports or athletics or football, to just decide, hey, we're not going to put you in because we don't think you're the best because your quarterback got hurt and we want to make sure we make the most money possible. Two birds up the college football selection committee. And if you follow me on Facebook, you already know my thoughts on that, because I put out a pretty heated comment on that Sunday following that decision. So if you're not a football fan, I'm sorry. I just had to go on that little rant real fast because just really, really, really still pisses me off. But go Seminoles. I know we got a lot of fans on here. And if you're one of the fans of a team that didn't make it, Georgia, Washington, Alabama, Texas, good luck to you. We'll see what happens. Florida State ended up going to the Orange Bowl against Georgia. We'll see what happens there. It's one of those games now where the star players that are going to the NFL, going to the draft from both teams, are like, why really play if we can't win the national championship? That's the goal. So I have a feeling it's not going to be as exciting a game as it could have been. But with that said, let's get back to money, finance, investing, real estate, mortgages, and everything else. But what do you think, Shauna?
Honestly, I feel like it was like a metaphor for life and money, though. It's like there's people who are in it for all the right reasons and have like all the purest of tensions. And then there's like all the corruption and the rules and all the things that you have to live in. It's pretty interesting to hear. I feel like I heard tons of similarities with everything, like the whole world at large, just through football.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I know one time I told Stephen that I heard that, the NFL was rigged like WWE, and he definitely was mad by that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that come out and say NFL sports are rigged. The games are kind of maybe the referees can determine a game, and there's a lot of instances. I mean, some games you do look back at some of the calls and when they happen and how they went down, and they're definitely questionable. But I played sports my entire life. I was captains of my baseball and football teams all through high school, my senior year, and I was a leader in sports, all through high school. I decided not to play in college for various reasons, but had a lot of friends that have been around sports, my entire life. And you really do, when you actually play sports like that, it's just hard for me to believe that how hard these guys work and how much they put into just every ounce of their human beings, like into winning and being the best of the best. It's just hard for me to believe that they just can kind of give that up and throw these games. Now, when you're talking tens of millions of dollars in the NFL, sure, that motivates people in different ways, but you still see how elite some of these athletes are. And it's, but you're right. I mean, you never know this day and age. You see some of the stuff that goes on with politics. You see some of the stuff that goes on with banking, with everything that we see every day in this country, the news that we bring you on What the F every single week. And it really does give you a what the F, like who knows, anymore what's going on. There's some interesting conspiracies out there, to say the least. So just looking down through the comments, Chris Bizup says, what's up, Shauna Decker? Dexter, of course, throwing up the fire. Good morning, Dexter, up early out there in California. Lynn's out there in beautiful 80-degree weather in California as well. So here we go. So Justin said, Stephen or Shauna, you guys hear about BUI for LLCs happening in 2024 taxes? I have not. Maybe I can Google that, or I don't know, Shauna, if you can pull that up and see what's going on there. But while we're waiting on that, let me just kind of pull up the news. I saw, the markets. Let's start with what the markets have been up to here this past week. So just share my screen and share what the stock market's been up to lately. Kind of start there. We'll see if StreamYard's working. Here we go. I set my computer and hope so to work, and it is. All right. So we look at the 10-year. So this is the Dow Jones over the last 10 years. As we've been talking about for a while now, we've been kind of up and down around these all-time highs, right around 35, 36,000. The Dow today's at 36,225, up 100 points this morning off of some data showing that the labor costs are falling. So there's a lot of talk of inflation is becoming under control. It's still pretty confusing when inflation is brought up. We see a lot of articles coming out, and we hear different tweets and things from the White House and from the Biden administration that prices are coming down and inflation's gone and things like that. It's not true. Inflation's still running 3.2, 3.5%, which means the cost of stuff is still increasing. Now, the rate of inflation has come down. We were over 9% about a year ago, and it's slowly trickled down to, like I said, around 3.2% right now, year after year. So, monthly, it's been pulling back the rate of inflation, but it still means that the cost of goods are still increasing year after year. And so some of that stuff, when you hear that, is just, framing, trying to make themselves sound good. Of course, we have an election coming up in November of this coming year, 2024. So anytime there's an election, especially as contested and hot as one is with potentially Biden and Trump running again, you're going to see a lot of just straight up false information coming out. You're going to see a lot of fake stuff coming out. You're going to see a lot of misinformation, everything that they say they want to prevent that they do themselves. You're just going to continue to see a lot of that. And it's going to really ramp up as we get more and more into election season. So take what you read for a grain of salt. You got to really dive in. You got to really look at the actual numbers, look at data. It's very similar to what we're doing right now with the infinite banking concept. So, R. Nelson Nash, there's a gentleman by the name of R. Nelson Nash who really coined the phrase, the infinite banking concept, and brought the strategy of using a specially designed whole life insurance policy basically to the masses. He's most well known for the book he wrote called Becoming Your Own Banker, and he wrote several books after that. Founded the Infinite Banking Institute, has put out our education. And this has been going on ever since the 80s. Now, we lost R. Nelson Nash a few years back, unfortunately, but he really was the pioneer that brought this to the masses. Now, the concept of using whole life insurance the way that we do with infinite banking has been around for over 200 and some years. And it's been used by the richest families in the world, the Rockefellers, are very famous, the Vanderbilts, all these very rich companies. Banks themselves are actually the number one purchasers of whole life insurance in the entire United States of America. There's many politicians, there's many executives, high-level CEOs and executives. Even Michigan, speaking of college football, Michigan's head coach, the cheater that he is. Just kidding. But anyways, the Jim Harbaugh, we're not going to get into that right now because that is a controversy too. But Jim Harbaugh's he's one of the highest paid coaches in college football, and a big portion of his compensation comes in the form of whole life insurance. So it's been used for a very long time. But R. Nelson Nash really brought that to the masses back in the 80s. And ever since then, there's been companies out there that have taught infinite banking, that have done this for people. Over the last decade or so, Brent Kessler has been on a mission traveling the country, sharing it with more and more people. And then Chris Naugle, myself, our team really got involved in 2019, 2020 very heavily in the infinite banking concept, teaching and training. A lot of you right now on here kind of have been following us the last 3, 4, 5 years and learning more and more about infinite banking. And over the last 12 months or so, we said, okay, we're going to take this from being the infinite banking concept to being infinite banking proven with data, numbers, math, and facts. And so not only are we only going to continue to talk about the conceptual side of how infinite banking works and how to become your own bank, but we're actually mathematically creating software and programs right now that prove the numbers out. So there will no longer be a debate. Is it better to buy term and invest the difference, like people like Dave Ramsey like to say, or is it better to really put your money in a specially designed policy this way, take advantage of uninterrupted, guaranteed compounding returns for the rest of your life, while you simultaneously can take that money and use it for investing, for never bleeding interest out to other banks in your lifetime, and keeping control of that money within your family for generations and generations. So we're going to start mathematically proving this and changing the entire game of infinite banking in 2024. So just super pumped about that, but I don't even know what led me on that rant. So the stock market at these all-time highs right now, it's one of those things that we've been talking about, because these levels cannot hold. All data, all numbers point to there's no way this can continue. One of the main reasons we saw this boom after COVID was because the Fed, the Federal Reserve, in conjunction with the U.S. Treasury, the Fed printed and created more money out of thin air. They literally just created out of nowhere, created more money than the entire United States history has ever even seen in forever in history. And coupled with unprecedented spending by the U.S. Treasury and the federal government, has just completely overinflated everything that we do. And that's why we saw, double-digit inflation over the last couple of years, and why everything's gone so crazy, and home prices have just gotten out of control, and mortgage rates being over 8% now, and everything that we've seen. And so this stuff can't sustain. There's markets, if you look at history, if I pull this out, you're always going to see ups and downs through history. There's always ups and downs. This just seems to be one of the most exasperated ones and longest bull runs ever, because of everything that's gone on. But as history has proven, as science proves, what goes up must come down. So that's what a lot of people are planning for right now. And that's a lot of what we focus on. We've been very, very busy recently. And so I've been kind of switching my hat, so to say, from more managing and overseeing and working with the companies to back to doing like sales, so to say, talking with clients, doing first client calls, strategy calls, things like that the last couple of weeks. And I haven't done that a lot lately. So it's been interesting to kind of reconnect with people on an initial level, hearing, what they've gone through over the last 6 to 12 months, where they're at today, what they're looking at for 2024, how they're planning, what their mindset is more than anything. When I talk to somebody, not only am I writing down what they're telling me, because that's important, but I'm listening to what they're actually saying and trying to figure out who they are as a person, because that mindset of somebody can really help me determine how to best guide them forward. And so right now I hear a lot of people that are scared, a lot of people that are worried, a lot of people that they don't know what tomorrow's going to be. Are they going to have a job next year? Are they going to have their home next year? Can they afford to continue to live if things change? And so, and people that have already been really hurt. I mean, I talked to mortgage brokers that have lost upwards of 90% of their income this last year. So imagine the last 10 years, the mortgage business has been excellent. If you've been in the mortgage loan business, the last 10 years have been excellent. And so imagine you've been rocking and rolling for the last decade of your life, and just like that, completely out of your control, just because of a changing market cycle, your income disappears because people stop buying homes. There's no inventory. Mortgage rates are through the roof, so people aren't financing properties. Refinances are at all-time lows right now, and I'll pull that up in just a second. And so all of a sudden, you've been doing everything great and life is great, and all of a sudden 90% of your income is gone. Well, shoot, what do we do? Well, one guy I was talking to this week, he said, you know what? I had to go get a job. He goes, I had to go work for somebody else just to get a salary. I'm still doing it on the side, but I'm still making 80 to 90% less than what I'm used to making. So he's completely having to change everything in his life and trying to come up with strategies to do so. And when we look at the news, but more importantly, we look at data, it's telling us that right now. If you look at credit card usage is at all-time highs. All-time highs. Did I freeze? Can you still hear me? All right, I don't know what happened. All right, so credit card usage just topped $1 billion, all-time highs. Also, credit card delinquencies are starting to really ramp up right now. So people have been spending the money on the cards. Now they're not able to pay them, and the delinquency rate is shooting up like a hockey stick right now. So that's number one. Number two, we look at 401k hardship withdrawals. They're breaking records right now again. If you look at the data from those over the last 6 months, more people are taking hardship withdrawals from their 401ks. People are tapping into equity. Home equity lines of credit, HELOCs are through the roof right now. And banks are happy to give those because banks are charging 8, 9, 12% for a HELOC right now. So the banks are making that money. And then what do banks do? They pay you, they're taking 8, 9, 12% from you in a HELOC, and then they're paying you 5% in this incredible savings account. You think it's incredible, 5%, but what did the bank just do there? They paid you 5, they made 8, 9, 10, 12. They just made a 4 to 6%, 4 to 6 to 8 point spread on your equity, on your money. And so banks always win. And that's a lot of what we teach when it comes to becoming your own banker, is how you make those spreads and you win instead of the banks. And so all the numbers are leading right now to this is not sustainable. There's going to be a lot of things that happen coming. Now, whether that happens before the election or whether it happens right after, we'll see if they can prop up this house of cards for that long or not. A lot of people are thinking because of the election, we're not really going to see the crash and recession hit until 2025, but most everyone says it's coming. And so right now is the time to prepare, get ready, and have a plan. So I know it's a little rant, Shauna, but what do we got going here? Any comments coming in?
I was reading a whole bunch about that BOI for LLCs, so beneficial ownership information.
Do you want to share the screen or?
Yeah, I actually have a ton of questions too. So I have like 4 screens. So let me see here.
All right, cool. While you're doing that, yeah, Justin said he needs a call. Yeah, Justin, just shoot me an email. It's Nagy, S-Nagy at privatemoneyclub.com or S-Nagy at whatever extension you have for me. And I'll reply right back. We'll get a call scheduled.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, financial crimes.
Yeah, so it's fincen.gov, so Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. So BOI is beneficial ownership information, which I guess is like if you own an LLC, it's like your name, your date of birth, like your driver's license. I guess like this is a federal I don't know what we want to get into, but basically the only people that are exempt is basically bigger corporations and stuff like that, more seasoned public companies. But I guess you have from January 1st of 2024, it hasn't started yet, till January 1st of 2025 to file that information. And it's just like for a federal I guess so the Fed knows who owns LLCs, because right now it's state to state. When you get an LLC, it's in your state. So I don't really understand where it came from. I guess it came from the federal what is it? The CTA Act, so Corporate Transparency Act.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, LLCs have always been used as not only a way to have some tax advantages, but also as a means of protection. You can there's some ways to make them there's a level of anonymity in there. There's a level of protection. So if somebody does want to come after you in a lawsuit or something like that, there's ways to kind of shield yourself of who owns that, or who owns that asset that somebody's coming after. And one of the easiest examples is if somebody does come after in a lawsuit for you for some reason, the first thing that an attorney typically does is they're going to do a quick background check. They're going to do a record search. They're going to search for property you own, things of that nature. And, if they dig a level or two deep and they can't find anything because you own stuff through, other states' LLCs and protected through different trusts and things like that, a lot of times most attorneys on a surface level, they'll kind of say, they don't have anything. They don't own anything. This lawsuit's not worth it. And they'll pass on it. And so, this makes you wonder if, like everything, the federal government just wants more control. The federal government wants, less, wants to be able to, just know exactly what's going on. And, things like that can go either way, because it can be a good thing, because with terrorism stuff, of course, you don't want people, being able to hide behind different things like that, like companies to protect themselves, maybe because of terrorist activities and things like that, the government needs to know. But in the other side of that, like, I'm sure we could go a lot of different directions, especially when you start looking at like the stories coming out with the January 6th people. I mean, there's stories right now that the federal, they've admitted that they don't have enough air marshals, for example, to protect people during the Thanksgiving holiday when people are flying, because the government have rerouted a lot of those air marshals to start following around people that were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And a lot of those people, from some of the stories I read, were not even at the Capitol on January 6th, like just happened to fly in and out of D.C. for some reason. And they have them on these like watch lists now, and they're like followed. So it's like, there's always that line of security, and security and freedom. And sometimes it gets overstepped. So I'd have to look more into that, Shauna, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it seems like it's just like the federal control. They want to know who's it's 25% or more. So I guess if you'd be exempt from this if you own 24% or less of an LLC, but it's like your a valid license, your date of birth, where you live, like all this sort of stuff. They say it's to stop crimes and stuff like that too, like you said, Stephen, but it just seems like more reporting and compliance and stuff that, and I don't know, it seems like a little bit more stressful to be a business owner a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, Mark says it's called the Corporate Transparency Act.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, anytime a bill is named or a program is named, such as the Inflation Reduction Act, it seems to always be the opposite. And so, Corporate Transparency Act, what does that really mean? And so,
yeah, very interesting
stuff. What we'll have to do, Sean, is we'll have to get one of our corporate attorneys, maybe somebody like Brent Carlson, to come on, and we can do a training on, what are they strategizing for people when this goes into effect. It looks like for new LLCs, it starts in 2024, and for existing LLCs, they'll need to file in 2025. So We'll bring on some strategies to one of our wealth webinars and do that, which, by the way, today at 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll have our wealth webinar kicking off, and it's going to be really fun today, actually. So we're going to get into a little bit about real estate tax strategies and what are known as 1031 exchanges. So we've went out and we found a 1031 exchange company that's owned by a couple guys that come from the real estate investment world and come from the financial world. And, they needed to do a couple 1031s, and they started exploring different attorneys and companies they could use to do this 1031 for them. And they found that industry is lacking greatly. The companies that they worked with weren't very helpful. The service wasn't very good. The way they operated and their overall just interface was not helpful for what they needed. And so they decided to get together and put together their own 1031 exchange company. And it's really, really, really cool what they're doing. And these guys are going to come on at 1 p.m. today Eastern for our wealth webinar. So if you go to chrisnaugle.com and just scroll down the page a little bit, you'll see wealth webinar. You can register. It's a free webinar. We do every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern for 90 minutes. And so today we're going to get into 1031 exchanges, and then we'll roll that right into some additional real estate investment education and some things that we're doing in real estate going into 2024. Because as I mentioned before, the stock market being at all-time highs, people are scared right now. They're worried what to do with their money. They don't want to leave it on the table. A lot of people are like, hey, I've made great gains. I don't want to give all those gains back. I don't want to ride this thing down, because how low can it go? If you look at technical analysis, which most people say just throw technical analysis out these days, which I agree with. But if you look at technical analysis, this baby could drop 50, 60, 70%. Are you willing to give up that kind of losses? Even 20%. What if the market, what if your 401k, what if your retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts drop 20, 30%? Are you good with that? Or is that okay in your financial life? And so a lot of people right now are like, well, let me get these gains off the table. Let me get into other stuff. And, of course, that's what we teach through our Money School 3-day trainings and, on a weekly basis on wealth webinars. So today we'll get into a little bit about, okay, if that's what your strategy is, you don't necessarily want your money sitting either, because inflation is still running well above the goal rate of 2%. So how do we keep our money moving, making more money, but maybe in a safer way that we can control? And for a lot of people, the solution for that has been private money lending. And so we're not talking about actively going out there and getting into real estate flipping. Very difficult business, especially if you're new right now in this market. So, and a lot of people do, have jobs and careers. So they don't have the time, families. So they don't have the time to go out there and flip houses or find deals or get into these, multifamily properties. But they have some money that they can give to somebody that does that on a full-time basis, has a successful track record, and they can give that person their money for that investment and have it secured with a mortgage, just like a bank does, or a trust deed, just like a bank does, that protects it in a first lien position, that's backed by an asset that's worth well more than what you're lending to the person, with guarantees and more involved. So we'll get into a little bit about that today, and how Private Money Club is really facilitating a lot of that for a lot of people. So join us at 1 p.m. Eastern today. We're really getting into some of those 1031 strategies and real estate investing strategies. With that said, Donna, what else do you see going on right now?
Well, no, to that point, actually, that reminded me. Last week's wealth webinar, we had Dan Breezy on, and he was kind of talking about, I think, he gets more B-level apartments that really don't get affected in these type of economic changes, and how important it is to link up with people who've been in real estate for over 10 years, because they've experienced a lot. And so in Private Money Club, there's people with like 20 years experience. They've been through the highs and lows. They've been through 2008. They've been through a lot of stuff, and it is really important to link up with that. Last week, I know I was texting Stephen about, I had a woman who called. She was like 54. She signed up for Private Money Club. She wanted to be in real estate. She didn't learn enough about real estate. And so she kind of was going to get out of Private Money Club because she didn't see how it worked for her. And, I tried to tell her about the flip side of being a lender, and how, maybe you don't have the time right now to learn about real estate or to dive into real estate, but you can easily, do a lot on the lending side, and link up with somebody who can. Like if maybe right now your lifestyle and your life isn't gonna allow you to learn the ins and outs of real estate. I don't even know if it's a good time to even do that, but yeah, so I was texting Stephen about it, and I tried to keep her around the campfire because I didn't want her just to leave and whatnot. But it's really easy for us to passionately talk about Private Money Club, because it is a solution for a lot of people and a lot of what they're going through, like regardless of their age and circumstance.
Yeah, I love it. And it's cool that you're talking to the members and getting their stories, and because they're, real people. It's teachers, it's police officers, it's, just everybody like you and me that are out there, our families that are out there just making a living, and they know that there's something better out there. They're willing to, educate themselves a little bit to learn something new and apply it. And it's amazing when you learn something that's so scary. I talk to people and they're like, just the idea of lending my money to somebody else is so scary. Like, where do I start? And I'll get into that 1 o'clock today, exactly what that looks like. But guess what happens when you have the education, you do things the right way, you're completely protected, first off. Second off, once you do a transaction or two, maybe you have us help you and hold your hand, one of our coaching programs, something like that. But the beautiful thing is, once you do it once or twice, guess what? That fear goes away. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, this wasn't bad. And then you want to do it again and again. And then guess what happens? Then you're out there telling other people, telling your friends, telling your family, hey, this is what I'm doing. And it snowballs. And, that's why last week was so cool with Dan Breezy and Chris kind of talking about snowboarding, because, like they said, like the first time you jump off, a tabletop or something, it's like, holy fuck, you're like flying through the air. Like, what am I, you're going headed down to that thing. You're like, what am I doing? You launch, but then you make your first nice landing on the backside. It's like the smoothest thing in the world. And you're like, that was awesome. I want to do it again. And then all of a sudden you're Dan Breezy jumping off 300-foot cliffs and 3, 4, 5-story buildings and through rails. And it was just wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, really cool stuff. So I'll share an article. This is interesting. So, we talked a little bit last week about different banks closing and branches closing. We had one of our money mentors was in a bank last week, and he overheard a couple of the bankers talking, and they were saying how more branch offices of banks have closed the week before Thanksgiving, that more banks had closed than over the last like decade combined. And this is what the bankers in the bank were saying. And Carson, our money mentor, was just saying like he realized that things were happening, but he didn't realize how bad it was. And it was just really kind of mind opening to hear that from actual bankers talking about it. And then Chris shared this article with us on text a couple of days ago, Shauna. 64 U.S. bank branches filed a shutdown in a single week. Just talking about as PNC and JP Morgan Chase have filed to close several branch offices in multiple states amid a troubling pattern of rising branch shutdowns in recent years. Between November and 12th and 18th, several banks filed to close branches. PNC with the most filings, according to data. The Pittsburgh-based PNC filed for 19 branch closures. JP Morgan, 18 closures. Citizens Bank, 8 branch closures. Bank of America with 5. Citibank with 2. So a total of 64 shutdowns. And just talks a little bit about, what that looks like, negative effects, and what that looks like for the banking industry. So this is a pattern we're seeing and we're keeping an eye on. But and we've heard a lot this year about layoffs, massive layoffs in the tech industry, especially, and that's continuing to go on. But then I opened up CNBC this morning, and I saw this article. So I'm going to read through this because I'm interested in it. So it says McDonald's aims to open nearly 9,000 restaurants amid 100 million loyalty members, and add 100 million loyalty members by 2027. So while we see a lot of businesses and banks closing down buildings and branches and offices, McDonald's looks like they're going the opposite direction and have a goal to open nearly 9,000 restaurants. So what is that all about? I didn't realize McDonald's was even that popular still. I can't even.
It's weird. I saw a video last night, like just scrolling through Instagram, and it was like a different type of McDonald's. It was like a drink McDonald's. Like it was like a different type of McDonald's. It was called like Cosmic McDonald's or something.
Interesting.
I mean, it was in my scrolling, so I don't have it to pull up, but
did it have a working milkshake machine? Because
maybe like it had like all these yeah, Duck Vaughn, good morning, McDonald's sucks ass. Duck, we've missed you. Also, McDonald's is gross. I don't eat there, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, though, that it makes you wonder if they're doing this well, how bad must people be doing financially to be almost forced to eat there? Because
right, ew. Like our diet.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the best quality food these days. I mean, I grew up eating McDonald's probably every meal of my life. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, we'd go through there as I was a kid. And then, even once I got to high school and, had to feed myself, McDonald's was a cheap and easy way to eat a couple double cheeseburgers after football practice and be full. But like,
not anymore. A couple of years ago, it was like 2 years ago, me and Harper just got 2 large fries and it was like $8.90. And I was like, damn, for just French fries, no drinks or nothing? That was a lot.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So McDonald's also announced a partnership with Alphabet's Google Cloud using artificial intelligence across its restaurants to improve operations. So that's what I was looking for, to see if they were going to talk about, AI and robots in these restaurants, because I have a feeling that as we see this growth, we're going to see more and more of these restaurants with no people in them. And so at the end of the day, we're feeding people, in my opinion, bad food, and it's not even providing any more jobs or anything. And of course, McDonald's argument is, a lot of these states and places are pushing for $15, $20, minimum wage. So why would they pay somebody $20 an hour to take a fry order when they can have a machine do it? So you can't blame them for it. But, is that the direction that we're going? Cheaper stuff, lower quality stuff, manned by robots. What does that look like in the future?
Actually, let me share what it was called. It's a spinoff. Can you see this, called like Cosmix?
Yeah, Cosms.
So it's like it's yellow and purple branding and an alien mascot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it say what the difference is?
I don't know. Small format concept with the DNA of McDonald's, but it's like going to be its own thing and unique experience while staying true to the McDonald's brand. So iced teas, slushies, all sorts of weird drinks.
Interesting.
Very, very weird.
Well, we'll see if you have a cosmic McDonald's popping up near you. Let us know if you get to one. All right, so kind of scrolling through the Twitterverse, a lot of talk about the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn. The University of Pennsylvania. We're on Congress yesterday, and being asked about some of the anti-Semitism going on in their campuses. There's been a lot of stories ever since October 7th in Israel, when Hamas declared war on Israel, and Israel has now responded, and everything going on with the war over there between Israel and Hamas. And so it's sparked a lot of protests and sparked a lot of just blatant anti-Semitism. I don't know how else to say it, across the United States and across the globe. And, we're seeing a lot of that on college campuses, especially a lot of these Ivy League college campuses. And it's really spawned open a whole conversation, about just, DEI and how, things that are meant to be helpful end up just going so far that it just crosses so many lines. And, I've talked about the last couple of weeks. I just never thought I'd see the amount of anti-Semitism in this country that we're seeing here recently. And it's mind blowing to me. So these presidents of these universities were on Congress yesterday being, asked about it. And they were asked just straight up, you can go watch the video. I'm not going to play it on here, but they were just asked straight up whether, they are against and are going to, say, hey, listen, this is unacceptable. The calling for genocide of Jews on college campuses. Like, is it bullying? Is it harassment according to their codes of conduct? And every single president from Harvard, MIT, and the University of Penn could not just say yes, that it was bullying and harassment according to their codes of conduct. They basically said there had to be action. So what does that mean? A Jew actually has to be killed before it crosses that line in their code of conduct. So that was really fascinating to watch and see them just decline to just call for that. And so a lot of calls now for the resignation and change in these universities. Harvard University has always been one of the most prestigious colleges in the world. The endowments, the amount of money that they have and donors is really unbelievable. If you look at their numbers, and a lot of large donors and people that have supported Harvard forever are coming out right now saying this is not the college I know. And, you see a lot of stories coming out of the other schools as well. So something to continue to kind of just watch, but it continues to dominate. I don't know if any of that's we're going to see any changes. The war in Ukraine and Russia continues to go on without an end in sight. A lot of, still money being poured over there without seemingly a plan to end the thing. So, just hundreds of millions of dollars. It's unbelievably amount of money, that goes out. Well, we have so many issues in this country. I mean, you look at what goes on with our vets, our military vets. And, if you guys have followed Chris and I and Shauna, for years now, you guys know we support more than anything the U.S. military and veterans. We love our truck drivers and police officers, people that really make a difference in the world. We love them, teachers, everybody, and, fully support. So it's just hard to see, how some of this stuff happens sometimes, when we could be doing such good and instead just hundreds of billions of dollars, go to these completely fraudulent. I mean, until the war with Russia and Ukraine started, I mean, Ukraine was known. I mean, it was common knowledge. They were one of the most corrupt nations in the world forever. And then all of a sudden a war starts and we just blindly hand them over, hundreds of billions of dollars. Oh, the amount of corruption in federal government's unbelievable. But
no, it is weird. And also, like, while we had those like fires in Maui, you know what I mean? Like stuff happening like on our own soil and money's going elsewhere. It really kind of is very confusing, very deflating.
yeah, absolutely. So bringing it back to real estate for just a second, saw a couple stories come out this week, kind of pertinent to what we do. So here's one from Reuters: U.S. existing home sales to stay subdued next year, along with prices. So some U.S. existing home sales are forecast to remain subdued next year and beyond as high mortgage rates force homeowners to stay put, according to Reuters analysis, who also expect house prices to edge higher. So it looks like we're going to stay kind of in this market cycle for going into 2024. The rate of the popular 30-year fixed mortgage rate hit a more than 2-decade high, just under 8% last month, leading to a 4.1% drop in U.S. existing home sales last month. It goes on to say the 30-year mortgage rate has since retreated a bit, but is expected to average 6.5% throughout next year, which historically is not that high. We just got so used to living in a zero interest rate environment with 3% mortgages that 6.5 is, it feels very, very high. And when you couple that with the home prices, how high home prices are, people, it makes it tough for your average family to be able to purchase a home this day and age. So home resales, which account for the bulk of U.S. housing transactions, we're expected to average a little over 4 million units next year. This is a far cry from 6 million in 2021. And 5.3 million average over the last 25 years. So home sales projected to stay low, prices projected to stay high, mortgage rates projected to stay around 6.5, which in recent history is considered pretty high. While interest rate cuts are on the way next year, which, by the way, the Federal Reserve has come out with some new guidance saying now that they might be projecting 6 rate cuts in 2024. And one more time, what's going on at the end of next year? Oh yeah, elections. So, but no, the Federal Reserve is completely separate of the federal government. They have no connection. They work independently of each other. The Federal Reserve is actually neither federally controlled or a reserve. So again, the naming of it, the Federal Reserve, should tell you everything you need to know about it. But despite those cuts, mortgage rates are likely to be too high to entice existing homeowners. And then we go on to look at refinances. Pull up this article real quick. So mortgage refinance demand jumps 14% and rates fall to lowest point since August. So a lot of people have been holding out to refinance properties just because of the high rates. But looks like whenever you see a small little drop, people kind of jump on that bandwagon and try and refi real fast. Which might not be great, because this tells me people might be refinancing their existing homes to be able to put money into them to fix them up so they don't move. They want to stay there. So they want to fix them up to stay there, where in normal times, maybe they would sell that property, move into a new home, which would open up, housing and kind of alleviate the issue we just talked about. But it looks like people might be staying put. So that's kind of some data just to kind of keep an eye on right there. Do you see, Shauna, do you see around where you live, like, do you know kind of how your housing market is? I mean, I know, like, for example, like where I am, housing, so it's kind of Florida's split in a lot of different sections. Where I am on the east coast of Florida, like northern Palm Beach County area, home prices have remained very, very high. Houses are selling quickly still. The market's been very hot. Over on the west coast of Florida, things are really starting to, inventories are starting to increase. Properties are sitting much longer. You see a lot of price reductions hitting the market. So, they're slowing down significantly right now. We're staying strong over here. What I'm seeing right now is a lot of new construction. I mean, just new construction everywhere. And the majority of the new construction seems to be on one side or the other. And what I mean by that is either very, very expensive luxury properties. I mean, we have one section just a few miles from where I live, this new community that they're building, where the lots themselves start at $5 to $7 million, and then you can build your multi-million-dollar property. And there's all these restrictions around it. So that's one community, but the majority of communities I see that are within the, driving distance of my home, a lot of townhome type builds, townhouses, and affordable housing. We have one apartment complex that was just built, and it was affordable. It was built as affordable housing. It was proposed as affordable housing, but the rents start at $2,700 a month, which is crazy, like for a little apartment. And so, what is affordable anymore? And that's renting. So it's like, it seems like it's either super luxury or they're building stuff that's affordable. That's still very a stretch for a lot of people. And that's what I'm seeing around where we are right now. And it varies greatly, but what do you guys see out there? Like if you're listening right now, like what is your area experiencing? If you know,
I know that. So I live kind of like out in the country. And so I've noticed that I don't know if the stuff's actually selling, but I do notice, just like you said, like in my driving, because I feel like out here people used to really like enjoy having land, right? But now there's like those signs that say like, lot for sale. I kind of feel like people, not that they're selling, but I do feel like people are putting stuff up for sale that maybe like 10 years ago, they could sit on having like 10 acres of land. And right now they're just like, oh, I might as well just list it for sale. Another thing that I've seen is two of my friends I know that have bought land and built their home for themselves too. So like, rather than shopping for a new home or even, anything like that, I guess it was, more affordable for them to build their home themselves, so start to front. But and then I have somebody saying Buffalo homes are selling in an average of 13 days. Buffalo has a major shortage. I do feel like if you go on Zillow here, though, there's just a ton of stuff for sale. I don't really know that it's selling, but I do feel like a lot of people list their stuff for sale. I don't know. Me personally, I've been in the same home for a really, really long time, and like what Stephen mentioned, it almost like makes me want to hunker down and stay put and just exist a lot longer than I would have planned to, at least with how things are right now. And of course, Stephen leaves me, so now I'm scared to handle the show by myself. Okay, so I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Mark says, come to Hawaii and he'll show us affordable housing. We'd love to come visit. It's amazing that you live there. We actually, Mark, too, we have a lot of people, like a lot of followers over in Hawaii. So we're going to have to do an event out there soon so we can all get together. And oh, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Tess. Yeah, so I'll just do the announcement again. So at 1:00 today, we have a 1031 exchange expert coming on to the Wealth Wednesday webinar, which me and Stephen have met with them a couple of times. They have a really good business model, but I'm excited to learn a lot more about 1031 exchanges. Like, honestly, just from a student level, like what is a 1031 exchange? I want to know who it's for, when to use it, that type of thing we'll be going over. And then we have Ask Me Anything today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Another thing I'd love to talk about is one of our events that so we've got Money Tank out in Utah for the private money club side of things in April. Tickets are available now. Not to give you tax advice, but if you're looking for a tax deduction before year end, buy your educational tickets and workshops and your travel and all that sort of stuff now. At least that's what I do when I have events coming up the next year. And thank you, Stephen. I'm freaking out by myself.
Sounds fun. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour anyway. It's going to wrap things up. Sorry about that. We had a if you guys have been following, I've had a roof being put on my house over the last week, and just have the inspector out here to do the final inspection. And of course, my dog decided to go crazy. But one of the many reasons we're looking to build a BYOB branch office down here in South Florida, so I can get out of my home office occasionally and go into a cool studio office for BYOB. But with that being said, appreciate everybody joining us today. Hopefully you got some good value out of this. And join us at 1 p.m. Eastern for Wealth Webinar. We'll be back here next Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. for What the F. Chris Naugle will be back. We'll have some good stories ready. Until then, hopefully survive the week. Don't do anything crazy. And we'll see you on the next webinar. Shauna, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
See you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.